Together, Disney and Pixar have created some of the most nostalgic movies of all time. But even the cute and lovable shows of our childhood have a few dark secrets. Coming up in our number 10 spot, Up. I'm pretty sure that any living and breathing person on the planet felt something when they watched Up. I mean, the montage of Carl and Ellie's life together could pull at the heartstrings of even the most cynical human, not to mention the arrival of the adorable Boy Scout Russell, who managed to help grumpy old Carl find the joy in life again. And while the story of the balloon lifting them up and taking them to Paradise Falls at first seems like a wholesome and magical event, there are some out there who theorize the story might not be quite as uplifting as what we've all come to believe. The evil theory suggests that Carl is actually dead the whole time, but that he's unable to pass into the afterlife. So in comes Russell, who isn't a young scout trying to earn his wilderness explorer badge, but actually an angel trying to earn his wings by bringing Carl up to heaven, or paradise. The theory then goes on to explain that Charles Muntz, the mad explorer, is really a fallen angel hell-bent on dragging Carl to the underworld with his hellhounds. I mean, as if this movie didn't make me cry enough, the idea that Carl is already dead and that the bad guy is trying to drag him down to hell the whole time is definitely not something I want to be true. Next up at number 9, Inside Out. Out of all the wild and evil fan theories I have come across, this Inside Out theory is definitely one I would have never seen coming. In the movie, the main character Riley has just moved from Minnesota to San Francisco with her family, and she's deeply unhappy. Now, in the movie, it's said that they moved because of her dad's job. However, there is a theory that they actually moved because Riley's mom committed credit card fraud. The reason behind this seemingly out of this world theory, apparently on the back of Riley's mom's credit card, the signature reads K. Ann Anderson, which some people online have pointed out is Bonnie's mom's name in Toy Story 3. However, Riley's mom's name is Jill Anderson, so why would she have a credit card with a different name on it unless she is a credit card stealing criminal who forced her family to move quickly to a new city to avoid being caught? I mean, is it potentially a bit of a stretch? For sure, but that would make it all the more evil if it turned out to be true. Coming in at number 8, Boo. The lovable, babbling Boo is easily one of my favorite characters in Monsters, Inc. But what's interesting about her is that aside from Sully being her monster, we actually don't really know anything about her. But that hasn't stopped fans from trying to find clues. The theory is that Boo, whose real name is apparently Mary, appears to have superpowers like appearing out of nowhere, and theorists claim that Boo is actually a crossover character from the Incredibles universe. But here is where it gets even weirder. Some out there believe that Boo is actually Edna's daughter. Now, we know Edna isn't too fond of tiny humans, so the theory claims that Edna put Boo up for adoption to the superhero Thunderhead, who Edna mentions is good with kids, and whose file also says he has adopted 5 of them. I mean, maybe it's not that evil, but it's definitely strange and definitely has me questioning everything. Coming in at number 7, Toy Story. There are a lot of theories out there specifically about Toy Story, like that Andy's dad is dead, or that the entire franchise is an allegory for the Illuminati, to name a few. However, one of the most evil ones out there is the toy corpse theory. If you haven't heard of it before, it was first theorized after a post to Twitter by the user @Stigib3 that said, quote, "My daughter just ruined Toy Story forever. She said if one of the toys died, Andy wouldn't know and he'd carry on playing with its corpse." I know, super creepy, but let's think about it for a minute. If Andy doesn't know that his toys come alive when he leaves the room, logically, he would have no clue that they could die. So technically speaking, yeah, he could totally just be playing with dead toy corpses unknowingly. That being said, some fans aren't so sure, as they pointed out that the alive toys would probably either bury or at least hide the toys so as not to have to watch or worse, play with their dead friends. However, all that in mind, the sheer idea of the toys being able to die is still super awful. Next up at number 6, Cars. What's not to love about the Cars movie? Spoiled race car moves to small town, hates it at first, but eventually makes new, unsuspecting friends, falls in love, and becomes a good person, or car, happily ever after. But according to some online, the entire world that Cars is set in could be way darker than we ever thought. The theory states that Cars is set incredibly far in the future, like we're talking beyond the WALL-E timeline, wherein the Earth has become completely void of humans and is now only populated by sentient vehicles. Now, that part isn't too crazy. I mean, it's not hard to piece together that it's a world made up of cars that are kind of human-like, but it's an animated movie after all, so most people don't think too hard about it. But have we ever thought about how or why all the humans are gone? This evil theory claims that Cars killed them all, and then using their advanced AI technologies, adopted the personalities of their previous owners. So not only are they killer cars, they would pretty much be identity theft killer robots too.
Coming into number 3, Nemo from Finding Nemo is dead. In a Sixth Sense style plot twist, some people think that Nemo is dead. Now, according to a popular internet theory, Nemo also died when his mum was killed in the shark attack at the beginning. Basically, Nemo's mum and all of their eggs were killed at the very beginning of the movie except for one. Nemo. Basically though, the theory says that it was all in Marlin's head, and in an attempt to cope with the tragedy, he imagined one of the eggs was left. Now he dreams up Nemo, a dependent fish who in theory would never leave him, but it all goes wrong, such are the lows of depression. In the end, Marlin accepts his grief. Apparently Nemo means nothing in Latin, and some theorists basically went from there. We have another Finding Nemo theory up next. This one is actually even more horrifying, so kids, please close your ears for the love of all things holy. Coming into number 2, Nemo would have had sex with his— actually, do you know what? I just can't say it. I'm not gonna say it. I won't. So basically this is both a theory and a biological fact. Nemo is a clownfish. All clownfish are born as hermaphrodites with both sexual organs. They develop into male or females depending on their social experience, and in the clownfish world, females are dominant. Who run the world? Female clownfish, that's who. But basically they can also change sex when need be. It seems if Nemo's mum had died, Marlin, his dad, would have turned into a female to become more dominant and protect his offspring. Then his dad turned mum and Nemo would have mated because fish don't understand incest. Then, if Nemo's dad/mum had died, Nemo would have changed into a female and mated with another male. Cool. Sometimes science is scarier than a horror movie. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the dead friends theory. There's a lot of Toy Story in this list, but let's face it, Toy Story is the most popular Pixar creation, and there are 3 of the movies, soon to be 4. So as we know, in the world of Toy Story, toys drop down motionless when humans come into a room. Humans play with the toys, and the toys pretend not to be sentient. Well, have you ever thought about this? Illumais wrote on Tumblr, if the toys in Toy Story died, the kids would keep playing with them like normal, but the other toys would be playing with their dead friends. What the hell? Honestly, what the hell indeed? My question is though, can toys in Toy Story die? Like, if they're dropped from a great height, would that kill a toy? Like, probably not. So unless they're burnt like they almost were, how can they die anyway? Although I think back and I remember the mutant toys, like, I guess that's pretty messed up. Sid was a horrible, horrible kid. They're kind of like living corpses, a bit human centipede-y, but in Toy Story this is so dark and none of them can speak. So dark. Honestly, Pixar, you've done it again.
Starting us off at number 10, Brave. While it might not seem like Brave has much of a connection to other Pixar movies in the catalog, there are some fans out there who have connected the Scottish flick to the beloved world of Monstropolis. Now, I know it seems strange, but just hear me out. The connection lies with the witch in Brave, and the theory is that she's actually the beloved Boo all grown up. Now, you may be thinking, Brave is set in like the 14th century, while Monsters Inc. is like 1,000 years later, so how could she be older? To that I say, you are forgetting one very important thing. The Monstropolis world possesses the ability to travel through time and space through doors, and realistically, why couldn't that mean that that you could time travel through them as well. And if you closely look, you will see that the witch has a carving of Sully in her workshop, which would only make sense if she knew who he was. Plus, the witch disappears without a trace after entering a door in her magic hut, suggesting that she still has one of the magic doors from Monstropolis to use for her time travels. Now, the truly evil part of this whole theory is it's believed that Boo devoted her life after Monsters Inc. to searching for Sully, but tragically has never been able to find him, which, I mean, if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. Next up at number 9, A Bug's Life. If you've ever watched A Bug's Life and wondered why there are so few humans, you are not alone. In fact, there is even an evil theory that explains it all. So for starters, in regards to the PCU timeline, A Bug's Life is set roughly a century after WALL-E, so somewhere in the 23rd century. And what that means is that not only is it post BNL takeover, but that it is also a disaster zone. It's been theorized that Ant Island takes place in an area with high nuclear fallout, which in turn would mean that all the bugs are likely radioactive. This would of course explain the strange colors and size of the bugs, as well as the sheer lack of human interaction due to the fact that humans would want to steer clear of the gamma rays in the area. But it also means that Bug's Life is pretty much set in a post-apocalyptic world, making a once sunshiny movie about as dark as it gets. Coming in at number 8, Monsters Origin. Monsters Inc. is the most in the future as far as the PCU goes. Have you ever wondered how these monsters actually came to be in the first place? Well, if you ever glossed over the special features on your DVD, then you would have found a short written about the monsters' origin story. In the feature, it shows that monsters, or mons, and humans, or mans, once lived side by side. However, the mans were not keen about these small, ugly, bad-breathed mons, and so they drove them away, banishing them from ever returning. The mons, with nowhere to go, then fled to an enchanted island, and extremely hungry from their travels, began eating the fruit they found on the island. However, after eating this strange fruit, they began turning into terrifying creatures, soon resembling the very animals that also ate the fruits. Then one day, one of the mons peered over into a pool of water and was so shocked to see the monster he had become that he frightened even himself. However, this gave him an idea. What if they could give the mans a taste of their own medicine and scare them away as revenge for banishing them? So the mons snuck back over to where the mans lived and scared them beyond belief. However, they liked it so much that mons decided to become monsters and made it their life's mission to scare humans for the rest of eternity. So essentially, the entire plot of the film is a giant revenge plan against mankind. Coming in at number 7, Andy's dad. This one is kind of a two-parter. So there is a pretty unanimous fan theory that Andy's dad is dead. This theory originates from an alleged story told to consultant Mike Mozart by one of the original movie writers, Joe Ranft. And according to the tale, in an early draft of the script, there was a backstory where Andy's dad had polio as a child and left Woody to his infant son after he died. Now, that in and of itself is obviously incredibly dark, but it could actually be even darker. Reddit user Eat Books tacked on to the popular belief, going on to say that they believe not only is Andy's dad dead, but the entire first film is a metaphor for Andy's mom remarrying a new man, and the actual story is being filtered through Andy's play the whole time. They continue on to explain that, quote, Woody represents his biological father, someone sturdy but visualized as a roaming cowboy. Buzz represents Andy's stepfather, a shiny, cool new dad, one that makes Woody seem dangerously out of date. Now, what's wild about this one is how much it actually makes sense. I mean, this would explain Woody's initial jealousy and denial of Buzz becoming part of the family, but it also still checks out that he eventually comes around to the idea that this is just how life is going to be from now on. Plus, we already know that Disney is not afraid to kill off a parent. Coming in at number 6, Sully's fate. Sully's fur is, without a doubt, one of the most standout parts of the Monsters, Inc. animation. I mean, not only is the signature blue and purple pattern something you could spot from a mile away, but it was also an intense labor of love, reportedly made of upwards of 1 million hairs and animated to move as realistically as possible. And as you've probably guessed, it's Sully's fuzzy fur that forms the center of this next very disturbing theory. In the film, we see the villain Randall tell Sully that humans have been known to strip monsters of their skin and use them as toilet seat covers. And while it's definitely an entertaining little throwaway line, it was never something I gave much thought to until I read this theory. The theory points out that in Partysaurus Rex, a Toy Story spin-off short, we see an eerily familiar sight in the bathroom, a toilet seat cover that perfectly resembles Sully's fur. So let's just say for a moment that Randall wasn't actually kidding around at all. It would appear that Sully entered into a dangerous portal and instead of harvesting laughter from a client was skinned and made into a decoration for the house. To make matters even more bleak, if we're also on board with the witch from Brave being Boo, this would mean the reason she's never able to track him down is because he's dead. Next up at number 5, Monsters, Inc. and Inside Out. It's a pretty popular belief that all the movies in the Disney Pixar canon exist in the same universe, meaning that there is a huge potential for quite a bit of crossover. And Reddit user Ice Metal Punk theorizes a pretty dark concept revolving around the crossover of Inside Out and Monsters, Inc. The theory begins by explaining that in Inside Out, we learn that everything forgotten gets dropped into the memory dump, then disappears forever. We see this happen with Bing Bong, Riley's imaginary friend, but did you ever really stop to think about where their forgotten memories actually disappear to? I mean, they have to go somewhere, right? Well, according to this Reddit user, they suggest that the monsters in Monsters, Inc. are actually the imaginary friends that humans forget as they grow up, and that the creatures had to learn to live together and form a functioning society. Not only that, but if you also consider the fact that the monsters are scaring their carefully selected tiny humans at the beginning of the movie, would that mean that they are trying to scare the very people who they once were the imaginary friend of? Also, does the memory dump affect them? Like, do they remember their human from before, or is this just some random client to them? I don't know, I have many questions, but mostly, I just hope it's not true. Coming in at number 4, clean energy. Speaking of Monsters, Inc. theories, I feel pretty confident saying that this one is probably the strangest and most gruesome I came across. Posted by Reddit user Curly Quickly Colorful, they suggest that Monsters, Inc. did not always use screams to make their energy, but once upon a time used blood. Okay? I know what you're thinking, but just stay with me for a minute. They explain that early on in the movie, you hear a commercial coming from Sully's TV talking about producing superior screams that they can refine into clean, dependable energy. And Reddit user suggests that, quote, if the concept of clean energy exists in this world, and they find the need to point it out in their advertising, logic would dictate that a different, theoretically dirtier, form of energy was harvested and utilized to power Monstropolis before Screams. And of course, what is the grossest, most awful thing they could harvest? Well, blood. And as much as I hope to God this theory isn't true, I can kind of see where they came up with it. I mean, if we think about energy in the real world, there is clean energy like solar power compared to dirtier energy like oil, and I suppose blood could be like the oil of the monster world? I don't know, I don't want to think about this one too hard. Coming in at number 3, WALL-E's true identity. While I definitely do not want a robot takeover of the world, if there is one robot who I would gladly share the planet with, it's WALL-E. I mean, not only is he the most adorable thing in the world, making little trash cubes and listening to musicals, but he also saves the world and eventually helps the humans return back home. Or at least that is what most people probably believe. Some, however, have a more cynical view of who WALL-E really is. And they think that he is not a hero at all, but that he is Satan. Yep, you heard that correctly. Let me just read you the quote. We have an entity, WALL-E/Satan, who gives an object, seedling/apple, to a robot/woman named Eve, which starts a chain of events that led to mankind losing a paradise and getting stranded on Earth. They then go on to explain that, quote, by the end of the movie, mankind has made its return to Earth, but they no longer lead an easygoing, carefree life. Now they must perform back-breaking labor in order to bring Earth back to a habitable state, leaving the relative paradise of the Axiom behind. Inevitably, this will lead to inequity and resource disparity, which in turn will lead to conflict, strife, and jealousy, which will lead to anger, hatred, and war, and perhaps the eventual re-destruction of the planet Earth. Then, once more, humans will be forced to leave their homeworld behind, floating through space in search of a better life, seeking the paradise they lost after the plant bearer tempted Eve. I mean, it's hard to get more evil than Satan, and the most lovable character somehow being evil incarnate is just about the worst thing I can think of. Coming in at number 2, WALL-E Universe. While we're on the topic of strange theories about the beloved robot, a video posted on YouTube by user MattPat has a chilling theory that will definitely be keeping me awake at night. MattPat begins by explaining that the idea that the Earth could be completely covered in trash in the time frame that the film sets it up in is not only unrealistic, but impossible. Instead, he theorized that the planet was not actually destroyed by human greed, as the viewers are led to believe, but instead that, by and large, the giant monopoly company purposefully ruined it. He says, quote, we see abandoned buildings, light poles, street signs, and other indicators that this once was a thriving metropolis. This indicates the breakdown of one of the most basic things for a modern society to function, a waste management system that transports waste out of the city towards landfills. Pat says that from the looks of it, Starliners were designed as a luxury space cruise, but the company couldn't convince people to go on their holidays, so they had to find a way to force people onto these ships, and that essentially, in order to force Earth's population onto the BNL ships like Axiom, they stopped funding waste management, convinced the people it was their fault, and drove them to live on the ship where they would have no choice but to consume all BNL products for the rest of their lives. I mean, talk about evil.
Alright, coming in at number 10, we have the homunculus theory from Cars. Sure, I actually wasn't ready for this. Like, why do theorizey people with their brains need to go around making disturbing theories? Why can't they just enjoy movies? Why? So Disney Pixar's Cars is a great film. I love it. It's set in an alternate kind of universe where humans don't exist, or they don't seem to. Maybe they did one day in the past, but they aren't around anymore. We never meet a human. The only sentient beings seem to be the cars themselves. And boats. I did see some boats, but mainly it's cars. Hooray for cars. Cars as far as the eye can see. Cool. Weird, but you know, it's a movie, so let's just let it go, which is what some people should have done. Unfortunately though, some people pointed out that if this is the case, if there are no humans around, then why do the cars have windows, door handles, mirrors, and a steering wheel? These are functions made for humans. Well, a theory goes that humans are actually living inside the cars, and the car outer shell is like a strange exoskeleton. Do you remember the tiny alien in the person's head in Men in Black? It's a bit like that, but creepier. Someone has drawn a physiological diagram of what this would look like, and honestly, I don't like it. You can read pages and pages and pages of theory, and honestly, we don't have time for the disturbing ins and outs, but I'll leave you with this. In the theory, they say that humans are lab-grown in amniotic vats and then embedded within an automotive exoskeleton. Coming in at number 9, Carl was dead all along in Up. up. There is one super sad and morbid theory out there that goes that Carl, the lovely grumpy old man, died the night after the courts tell him he has to leave his home in his sleep. Everything else is said to be his adventure to heaven to be with his dead wife Ellie. Russell is said to be his guardian angel, but an angel in practice who needs to earn his wings. In the movie, he needs a badge for assisting the elderly to become a senior wilderness explorer. Now the theory says that Carl's guardian angel is a child because he and Ellie were never able to have one. So sad. The house that Carl and Russell fly away in is said to represent Carl's physical attachment to the present world, and floating up is said to represent his transformation from the real world to the spirit world. Paradise Falls in the movie is said to be the gates of heaven, which Carl eventually reaches. Was he dead this whole time? It seems the theory started on Reddit and ballooned from there. Pardon the pun, I'm honestly just trying to quell my pain with humour. Coming in at number 8, Boo grows up to be a witch. This is a Monsters Inc. and Brave collaboration theory. Right, so this one involves time travel and a bit of a stretch of the imagination, but bear with me. So basically I never thought that cute little Boo would turn out to be the witch in Brave. Like, what? It seems that there is an Easter egg in Brave that has got people cooking up a terrifying theory. It seems that there's a wood carving of a monster that looks a lot like Sully in the witch's cabin. Boo and the witch do after all have the same colour eyes. So basically the theory goes that Boo spent her life looking for Sully, which led her to go through many doors a la Monsters Inc. In the end, one door took her to the past and she learned to time travel. Remember the scene in Brave when the witch goes through a door and disappears? Is it Boo? She'd know how to do this. There are further suggestions that the witch has seen the future. She carves a pizza van from wood. Again, she carves the Sully. Maybe she's looking for him, allegedly. Honestly, I can't fathom Sweet Boo being a baddie, but good theory. Coming into number 7, we have another Monsters Inc. theory. This one is like a collaboration with Monsters Inc. and Toy Story. Is Randall Andy's monster? In the first and second Toy Story movies, Andy is the perfect age for a monster. In Monsters Inc., monsters go around scaring kids just like Andy to help generate power. Now we know that Disney and Pixar love a good Easter egg, and if you look closely, it seems they may have dropped a hint about what goes bump in the night in Andy's room while his toys are sleeping, or motionless. This theory was pointed out by the Super Carlin brothers, who I absolutely love. Have a look at this. Now, this does look a lot like Andy's famous cloud wallpaper, does it not? Also, is this Andy's door in the door lineup? Randall may have been Andy's monster all along. Ugh. Randall. Coming into number 6, Andy's dad was murdered, another Toy Story theory. So we've had a bit of news about this from the Disney Pixar camp, but before we talk about what may have been confirmed or denied, I want to talk about this worrying theory. It seems that a fan of the franchise on Reddit posted that they thought Andy's dad, who we never meet, is dead. It wouldn't be surprising, would it, knowing that Disney is basically the parent killers of the ages, like dead, always dead, at least one parent dead anyway. So the theory goes that Andy's dad was a police officer, but he was shot and killed on duty, hence Andy's obsession with male authority figures. We see Andy and his family move home. Maybe this is because of his dad's death. Another theory says that he died from polio, but Toy Story creator Andrew Stanton wrote that this was actually complete and utter fake news. What is going on with his dad then? Tell us, Andy. Andrew Stanton. Coming into number 5, Wall-E is actually evil. I actually honestly refuse to believe this one. This is pretty long and it's like quite intense to go into. I just don't want to believe it as well because Wall-E is so cute. Nonetheless, a number of fans out there have pointed out that it is almost impossible for the Earth to become overrun by trash by accident. Some fans say that the Wall-E unit went rogue and destroyed all of the other Wall-E units over a 700-year murder spree. Apparently this is why there is so much waste. There's only one robot around and we see him cannibalizing parts of his fellow units at the beginning of the movie. Wall-E can't be a murderer, can he? Coming into number 5, Toy Story is promoting the Illuminati. There's nothing like a mid-list top 10 appearance of the Illuminati. It's classic, it's a tale as old as time. This honestly is a bit of a stretch for me, but some people are convinced that Toy Story has hidden Illuminati themes. I don't know though. There are straws to be clutched and people are gonna clutch them. People are pointing out stars on the wall of Andy's bedroom. Stars of course are made of triangles, and triangles are of course the ultimate symbol of the Illuminati. Also, inverted pentacles are a thing and they're spotted in a toy store. There also seems to be a sun pyramid on display. Lotso also references pyramids, and Mrs. Potato Head has just one eye. Honestly, I do think this theory is ridiculous, and I don't believe that Toy Story is controlled by a murderous and elusive secret order, but maybe I'm a skeptic. After all, what was what's happening at Walt Disney's Club 33. Coming into number 4, Andy has no friends and maybe he's a clone. There is something weird going on with Andy. Have a look at him. Here he is. We know that he loves playing with his toys, but does he actually have any friends? Sure, we meet them, right? But do we? There's a scene in which Andy is seen hanging out with his lad mates. The only thing is, they all have the same face. Andy's face. Even Sid looks a lot like Andy, just with different colour eyes. When Andy grows up, he looks a little different, but the theory goes that as a kid he didn't actually have any friends. He invented them in his mind. That, or he's a clone. Some people even think that Sid and Andy are related. Okay, listen, I don't like saying this as much as you guys aren't gonna like hearing it, but there are some darker sides to Toy Story when you really think about it. Get ready because I'm only gonna say this once. Coming in at number 3, the toys have all seen Andy masturbate. Good, great, can we move on now? No? Well, basically all the toys likely witness Andy's transition from boy to teen and all of the dark stuff that involves. Why worry your webcam is watching you when you have a room filled with eyes watching you until you finally get rid of all of your toys? But I have to say, even people I knew at university had a teddy on their bed, and that's pretty grim if you think that all toys are real and can see you. Stop watching me! Coming in at number 2, Sully was murdered and turned into a toilet seat cover. Okay, so in one of our Disney scary theories, we talked about how Zazu said to Mufasa that Scar would make an excellent throw rug, and then he turned up in Hercules as, well, a rug. Well, we can write that one off as karma. Yes, I think that hunting sucks, but Scar was the literal worst. You know who wasn't the worst though? Who was arguably actually the best? Sully of Monsters Inc. It seems unfortunately though that the lovable monster may have met the same nasty fate. In one scene of Monsters Inc., Randall, the creepy monster, explains to Sully why he hates humans. He says, "I've heard humans skin monsters and make toilet seat covers out of their fur." Sully's like, that's nonsense, and sure. Unfortunately though, in Pixar's short, Partysaurus Rex, we see a very suspicious looking toilet seat cover. Like, it can't be. Can it? Are the things just like Randall said? Did Sully make a mistake in trusting humans? Is he now dead and all that's left of him is his fur? Say it isn't so. Finally, coming into number 1, this is a bit like pondering black holes in the wider universe. Honestly, I am mind boggled. We have the Pixar theory. So the Pixar theory is a consuming mind melt of a theory that all Pixar movies are related and exist along a timeline of a shared universe. A really messed up universe. There'll never be enough time in any of our videos to tell you in depth how this works, but let me try and summarize for you. So it seems it all starts with Brave with the will of the wisps, aka magic. This magic interacts with animals, humans, and objects. A time loop is created by a magic witch who disappears through a door. It later turns out in the theory that the witch is Boo from Monsters Inc. The timeline spans from the 14th century right up to the 50th century with Monsters Inc. At one point, animals rise up to try and overthrow humans, but machines help the humans win. But then the remaining humans were sent off into space on a ship called Axiom amid a worldwide takeover from an evil corporation, BNL. It goes on, but it's a mind melt. And it's a terrifying glimpse of the future.
Coming in at number 9, Riley's monster. Speaking of Monsters Inc. crossovers, this next theory suggests that Riley too could have been one of the scaries the monsters had to visit at night. Now, there is one theory out there that suggests that Bing Bong is actually Riley's monster, but from like after the first Monsters Inc. movie where they were harvesting laughter, hence why he wouldn't be a frightening presence in her life. And while I can definitely see that one holding up, there is another conflicting fan theory that is a bit more interesting. The second theory is that Bing Bong is simply her imaginary friend, as we're told, but that he contains clues relating to who her actual monster is. As you might remember from the movie, Bing Bong tells us what he was inspired from, but he just so happens to leave out where his legs came from. Suspicious. Fans have pieced together that this is because his legs are inspired by her monster, George Sanderson, whose fur exactly resembles the yellow and orange striped legs we see on Bing Bong. And so, the reason that Bing Bong can't identify where his legs come from is because Riley was either so afraid of George that she blocked the memory, or she just pretended not to remember as she was trying to turn something frightening into something more positive. Now, if all this is true, that would also mean the sock on George's back that causes the entire ruckus at the beginning of Monsters Inc. would have been Riley's which is a fun little Easter egg. Coming in at number 8, Bruce the shark. In the movie Finding Nemo, Bruce made us all giggle as he held his Sharks Anonymous meeting, stating the now famous catchphrase, "Fish are friends, not food." But some fans out there began to wonder just where he might have gotten this belief system from. After all, I am only aware of 2 vegetarian sharks in the media, Lenny from Shark Tale and Bruce. Well, some fans think they have gotten to the bottom of it, and I gotta say, if anything, this one is an entertaining theory. According to fans, Bruce is actually the son of the shark from Jaws, but that his dad abandoned him when he was young and he was raised by a single mother. Just stay with me. The theory then goes on to explain that his mother was likely wanting her child to be unlike his father, and so raised him to be as kind-hearted as she could. Now, as I already mentioned, in Finding Nemo, Bruce has his shark support group whose mantra goes against the killing machine narrative that is so often associated with sharks. And some fans theorize that Bruce is so afraid of becoming his dad that he formed this support group to make his mother proud and to try and hold himself accountable. I mean, this one is a bit far-fetched, I have to admit, but hey, you have to admit it would be wild if it turned out to be true. Next up at number 7, The Emperor's New Groove. So before anyone says it, I know The Emperor's New Groove is not a part of the Pixar canon, but this is a list about Disney Pixar theories, so I'm gonna lean a little heavy on the Disney side for this one. This theory starts off by noticing that when the fly screams out to Llama Cusco for help before being eaten by a spider, it's screaming out in English. Now, to most, this might have been a fairly insignificant bit of the movie, however, this fan theory suggests that it could actually be super grim. Essentially, they point out that the only animals that are able to speak in the movie are the ones who were originally human, i.e. Yzma the cat, and of course Cusco as the llama. So, if animals in this universe can only speak English if they were once human, it means the fly about to be eaten by a giant spider is a human trapped in a fly's body. The only hole I kinda wanna poke through this one is that the squirrel kind of talks. I mean, he speaks and squeaks, but Kronk does understand him, so I guess you could also propose that the squirrel was once a human too, and that he just has been a squirrel for so long he's forgotten how to speak? Because, I mean, he can definitely communicate and get a point across as well as any other character in the movie. I don't know, I'm just spitballing. I'm just glad there's no real life potions that could turn me into a fly and make me spider food. Next up at number 6, Wreck-It Ralph. This next one was posted to Reddit by the user It's Got to Make Sense, and it makes an already sad backstory into an even more chilling theory. So, as you might remember, in the movie Wreck-It Ralph, one of the characters, Calhoun from the Hero's Duty game, tells the tragic story about her husband being eaten by a cybug and that she had to kill said cybug at their wedding. I mean, already super not great. However, they explain that it gets even darker when you piece together the fact that during the movie we learn that cybugs morph into whatever they eat. Calhoun herself mentions this a few times, and we see it in action with Ralph's laser gun and then again with King Candy. So, that would in turn mean that when Calhoun's husband was eaten, the cybug would have quickly started morphing into the image of him, and that she would be forced to shoot at not only a creature that just ate her husband, but one that looked just like him too. And on her wedding day to boot. Talk about a rough day. Coming in at number 5, Cars. Despite being a seemingly harmless and wholesome series of movies, when it comes to terrifying theories, Cars has more than a few disturbing ones rolled up its sleeves. If you remember from the first part of this series, there's a theory that all the cars on the planet killed all the humans on Earth and then used their AI to adopt their previous owners' personalities, which you would think would be creepy enough. However, you would be wrong. According to Jay Ward, the creative director of Cars, it's not just the personalities of their previous owners that the cars seem to have adopted, but also their organs too, meaning that they are pretty much cyborgs. When asked why we never see inside the car hood or view the car doors open, he replied, quote, "You'll never see the doors open because the brains and eyes are in there, and we don't want anything falling out of the side." I'm sorry, what? So not only did they kill all the humans of the planet, they somehow harvested their organs, or at the very least managed to grow organic human matter somehow. Honestly, I am scared to ask too many other questions about this one. Coming in at number 4, The Incredibles and Cars. If you thought I was done with my horrifying Cars theories, then you're sorely mistaken. However, this next one also involves The Incredibles. So as we've already covered, the Cars killed all of humanity, potentially harvested their organs, and then used AI to generate human personalities. But have you ever wondered where exactly this advanced technology would have come from? There is one theory that suggests it came from the evil villain of the first Incredibles movie, Syndrome. The theory starts off by explaining that Syndrome created his robots to hunt down supers, hence giving them a high level of artificial intelligence. However, as we know, his own creation ends up turning against him after becoming self-aware enough to realize it was being taken advantage of, which is pretty much exactly what happens in the Cars theory. Now, while the final robot from Incredibles is destroyed, it's been suggested that the actual technology would have still remained, and so therefore would have, in turn, been passed onto other robots, eventually causing the complete uprising of AI motor vehicles. Coming in at number 3, Finding Nemo. It goes without saying that Pixar movies are not 100% scientifically accurate. I mean, they are meant to be wholesome family movies after all, and so for the sake of a good story, some biological impossibilities are kind of glossed over. And honestly, in the case of Finding Nemo, thank God. This one is, I guess, less of a theory and more of an incredibly disturbing fact, but trust me, it will still leave you questioning everything. So in real life, clownfish are actually born genderless, and their gender is therefore determined by the needs of the colony. Now, in a clownfish colony, there is only ever one female, and so if the breeding female dies, the alpha male that had previously been her mate essentially stops producing the hormones that make him male and turns into the breeding female. From there, one of the other juvenile males of the colony becomes the new breeding male. So without, saying it outright, in Finding Nemo, Marlin's wife dies, and he is left with only Nemo in his colony. Marlin, being the previous breeding male, would then turn into a female, and, well, I will let you finish the rest of that thought. Coming in at number 2, The Incredibles government. Right from the get-go of the first movie, government agents play a fairly substantial role in the plot of The Incredibles. And while it's set up to show that their job is to watch over retired supers, making sure they don't reveal their true identity, the truth could actually be much darker. It's been pointed out that if their true purpose was actually to watch over these retired supers, then why do they not seem involved in the fact that they keep disappearing and even dying? Even more so, if they were watching them, how were they completely unaware that they were being escorted to Syndrome's top secret island, unless they did know, and they were actually behind it the whole time? This evil theory suggests that Syndrome was actually working with government agents to get the whereabouts of the supers, and that the government supported it as it discreetly got rid of them, therefore saving them millions in protecting or cleaning up after their mishaps. The theory then goes on to explain that Syndrome would have likely won them over by offering technology in exchange for their cooperation. And I mean, talk about evil. And last up in our number 1 spot, life on the Axiom ship. Wouldn't you know, there is yet another WALL-E theory out there that might just change the way you watch this movie forever. So according to the theory, the infamous Axiom spaceship was only designed to be a temporary solution to the world's problems. In fact, the human safe haven was only supposed to be a 5-year interim measure to house all of humanity, while our lovable robot cleaned up the world one trash cube at a time. However, if you remember, the Axiom ship was in space much longer than that, 695 years longer to be exact, which poses a very disturbing question. How on earth Were they feeding all of these people? Well, one theory suggests that the people of the Axiom ship are unknowingly consuming their own dead. It all started after a YouTuber did the math and worked out that in its 700-year-long voyage, the ship would have amassed about 2 million corpses. And even if they overplanned and brought on, let's say, 10 or even 50 years worth of food, reason stands that somewhere along the line they would have began running out of resources. So with a lack of food and a surplus of dead bodies, the evil conglomerate was likely recycling their dead and feeding it to humans for hundreds of years. So yeah, good luck getting that one out of your head.
Coming in at number 9, we have a huge aviation disaster and Edna Mode's death plot from The Incredibles. So Edna Mode is the woman who makes the superhero suits in The Incredibles, and if you remember correctly, she was very anti-cape.
Dinah guy. Oh, he had a great look. Oh, the cape and the boots.
No capes.
Who can even blame her as well? We did learn that the superhero Stratogale died when her cape got sucked into a jet engine. This means that she also likely took the plane down with her too. A bird in the engine can do this to a plane, so a human, well, that's nasty. It is thought that the accident took place in 1989, forcing superheroes into hiding for 15 years until the film's release in 2004. So the plane does look a bit like a United Airlines plane. We suspect that the incident happened in America. Could this plane crash have been the real cause behind the Denver to Chicago Flight 232 crash? Some people on the internet certainly think so. In that crash, 111 people died and 185 people survived. Beyond that, it gets even darker. It is thought that actually a cape was included on the villain of the movie specifically so he would meet the same fate. What about the people on the planes though? What about them? Coming into number 8, did Andy's mum abandon Jessie? This one has done a few rounds across the internet, and it seems that Andy's mum, the sole parent in his life, may have been a callous toy abandoner. We know that Jessie was devastated when her previous owner Emily grew up and left her. Clues lie in Andy's hat, which looks way more like Jessie's. Could it have been a hand down from his mum? His mum also mentions Woody is an old family toy, a collector's item from the 1950s, so maybe her parents. When we see Emily's room, it looks like Jessie and Emily were together in the 60s or 70s, making Andy's mum the right age to have been playing with toys, assuming she's in her early to mid 30s when the first Toy Story came out in the late 90s. In the box that Jessie is bundled into, we see other cowgirl paraphernalia, but the hat isn't there. Was the hat handed down to Andy? It certainly looks like it. Also, look at this shot of Emily as a teen. Could this be Andy's mum? It could be. Coming into number 7, Riley's parents aren't okay in Inside Out. Well, that's pretty worrying, isn't it? During Disney Pixar's Inside Out, we get to see inside people's brains, and I kinda like that. Not only do we see inside Riley's brain, we also get a little glimpse at other people's, specifically her mum and her dad's. Now the interesting thing though is that when we peek into her mum's brain, we see that sadness is the leading emotion running the show, and that in her dad's brain, the alpha emotion is anger. So, her dad is angry and her mum is sad. That's pretty depressing, isn't it? We also hear his angry brain refer to her as simply woman, which he says in a derogatory way.
What? What is it, woman? What?
It doesn't actually really seem like from this quick snapshot that they're a very happy couple. There are other theories out there that Riley is adopted, but that isn't particularly dark or scary, so we'll leave that out for now. Coming into number 6, the bad guys are helping each other in Ratatouille and Up. Ratatouille is one of my favourite Pixar movies, especially because I love food, and a cooking rat is hilarious. I also loved Up, although I am not down with the character of Charles Muntz. He learned that dogs are sentient, and he basically then ends up abusing them as slaves. How did Muntz even find out that animals can communicate and work with humans? Well, some people think that he was in cahoots with the villain of Ratatouille, Chef Skinner. So Remy the rat works with Linguini to create beautiful food, but when Chef Skinner finds out that Remy can cook, he tries to capture him and put him to work on a soulless frozen fast food project. In the end, Chef Skinner gets away, and the theory goes that Skinner flees France and heads to South America, where he met the villain Muntz and told him the animal's secret. With that information, Muntz is able to develop his collars. Also, does this snap from Ratatouille foreshadow it all? Possibly.
Number 5. Crazy coincidence. Sticking in the Cars universe, we actually now get to include the Planes movies as well. These films obviously take place in the same world, as planes and cars are seen interacting together all the time. But Planes gave us a very interesting look into the anthropomorphic vehicle's history. We learned from the character Skipper that he fought in what was essentially World War II. But we've established already that there are no humans left on this world, so does that mean that the cars have repeated some of humanity's worst atrocities? Some Reddit theorists believe so, and that opens up the floor for so many more questions, like, was there a car Churchill? Was there an evil mustached Volkswagen? And on another note, if there's a car Pope, does that mean that there was also a car Jesus? So many questions, so little gas mileage. Number 4. Incredibles United. There is a steadfast rule in the Incredibles films from superhero costume maker Edna Mode.
Knock it!
The main reason for this seems to be because she designed the costume for a teen hero named Stratogale, who met her untimely demise due to her cape. Stratogale had many powers, including the ability to talk to birds, and unfortunately, like many birds before her, she got caught in an airplane turbine. But since a bird in an engine causes major damage to a plane, surely a whole human would cause way more. In 1989, one of the worst single aircraft disasters happened when United Airlines Flight 232 suffered an engine failure, causing the plane to crash land, and only 184 of the 296 passengers survived. The plane in The Incredibles bears resemblance to one from United Airlines. Heroes have also been in hiding for 15 years until the film's release in 2004. 15 years before that being 1989. Some believe that in the Incredibles universe, the tragedy of Stratogale and the crash of Flight 232 are one and the same. And that is the reason the heroes had to go into hiding. Number 3. Brave Boo. Boo is by far one of the most adorable characters in the Pixar universe. She's sweet and funny, and she's so very sneaky. But some believe that she grows up to be something a bit more sinister. The Witch from Brave. Some theorists think that Monsters Inc. takes place far into the future, and that the doors they go through don't just lead to different locations, but to different times as well. And this is one of the main ways that the joint universe theory is held together. Boo learns and remembers that doors are somehow the key to finding Sully, or Kitty, again, and devotes her whole life to discovering this secret world. She eventually gains access, but goes through a door that sends her back in time, to the Middle Ages. Here she learns all sorts of magic from the Will-o'-the-Wisps, including the spell that turns Merida's mother into a bear. The driving plot of Brave. Far-fetched, I know, but in the witch's hut is a mountain of evidence proving the witch is a time-traveling Boo. One of the wood carvings is of the Pizza Planet truck, and there's a drawing of Sully on a log in the background, and the witch seems to often disappear through doors.
Coincidence? I think not!
Number 2. Shopper's Syndrome. This next theory is one that I haven't really heard talked about much. It states that the company By and Large, the same one that seems to own most of the human world in WALL-E, and earlier on as the company that made Buzz's batteries in Toy Story 3, and the company that forced Carl to leave his house in Up, was actually founded by Syndrome, the villain from the first Incredibles movie. As a young inventor, he created all sorts of robotic technologies that would go on to change and conquer the world. Many of the technological gadgets in WALL-E have a direct connection to Syndrome, such as the zero-point energy that restrains Eve, who also uses flight and organic scanners like Syndrome's Omnidroids. After his death, the company moved away from producing killer robots and began making commercial products, and monopolizing every industry that it could, until eventually, they took over the world just like its founder always wanted. Number 1. All the way up. This final theory is one that I personally believe to be the most plausible and the most heartbreaking. And here's the main thesis. The story of Up is actually Carl Fredricksen's journey to the afterlife, to finally be with his wife Ellie again. Now let's break it down. First of all, the amount of balloons Carl used to lift his house off of the foundations, which Pixar has said is 20,622, is not nearly enough to perform such a feat. So right there, we have a clue that this may not have been real. Many think that Russell is Carl's guardian angel, but he still needs to earn his wings, or, in other words, once he earns his Assisting the Elderly badge, his training will be complete and he will be a full wilderness explorer, or a guardian angel. So now, we have an old man lifting off the ground into the sky and traveling to Paradise Falls. Sure sounds like the journey to heaven to me. Throw in an evil person masquerading as a childhood hero who has evil dogs doing his bidding, not unlike the Hounds of Hell, and you have a pretty good allegory. In the end, Carl reaches Paradise Falls, and we can only hope he is at peace and with Ellie.
Number 8, cars take place in the future where humans don't exist. So what happened to us? Well, apparently cars take place in a dystopian world where all of the humans have died. Is this the future of what Earth is gonna look like? You know how The Simpsons predicted a lot of stuff? Well, maybe Disney is right about this one as well. Haven't you ever wondered how these talking cars were even created? Well, according to this theory, humans have been creating smart cars that have the ability to drive themselves. Over the years, these cars got smarter and smarter until one day they said, you know what? We don't need humans anymore. They slow us down and they're just extra weight. So let's get rid of them. And that's exactly what they did in this theory. These cars went on a murderous rampage and wiped out our species. But apparently the cars take on the personality of the last person who drove it. So basically you're saying that these cars are metal ghosts of people's spirits and they're just trapped inside of these vehicles. I mean, things got super dark pretty quickly. Dopey and Geppetto are the same person, and this takes us to number 7. This theory is pretty sad and disturbing at the same time. Well, let's compare Dopey and Geppetto side by side. Okay, apart from the large age gap and me almost not remembering who Geppetto was, I'm like, Geppetto, who is that? Well, it's easy to see that they have a lot of similarities, but they also have a lot of personality traits in common as well. Both of them are kind, they're clumsy, easily confused, and they tend to get scared very easily. But let's dive a bit deeper, shall we? Let's say that originally that they were actually 6 dwarves. One day when they were out in the forest, they stumbled across an abandoned baby. They thought he was a dwarf, so they took him in. As time went on, the others started to tease and abuse him. At that time, Dopey would have been a toddler who couldn't speak yet. So that kind of explains why he's so clueless and quiet. But once the others realized that he wasn't a dwarf, they kicked him to the curb. But Dopey was in love with Snow White, even when he got older, so he made Pinocchio to be modeled after her. The puppet was supposed to represent what Dopey thought a child of theirs would look like. I mean, take a look at this picture. They actually look like they could be related. I feel really bad for Geppetto now. Number 6, Snow White and cocaine. Okay, well, you know what? I didn't mess up with this one because we have another Snow White theory on this list. By the way, have you guys tried to rewatch Snow White when you got older? Well, it's actually really painful. I don't know if I would highly recommend it, but I couldn't even make it past the part where she's singing into the well. But you know what, I wasn't a huge fan when I was a kid, so I guess I don't respect it now as an adult, but a lot of you guys probably love it. But anyways, getting back to the theory, the name Snow White is a metaphor for cocaine, and happy, grumpy, sneezy, dopey, they represent side effects from snorting too much of it, too much cocaine. And then we have Doc. Doc, because if you are a cocaine user, it will most likely send you to a medical professional at some point. And don't even get me started on the haunted forest scene. That was a bad trip gone seriously wrong, and maybe she was singing into the well and hearing voices because she was flying high. It's all starting to make sense now, actually. Was this even a kids movie? This should have been like 18A. 18A, is that even a such thing? I think it might be a Canadian thing. Carl was dead the entire time, and this depressing theory
Next up at number 5, Onward and Toy Story. Onward is one of the newer films that's been added to the canon, having only been released in 2020, but wouldn't you know it, some fans believe it could be connected to the one that started it all. The movie Onward centers around 2 teenage elf brothers, the younger Ian and the eldest Barley, whose father tragically passed away before Ian was born. On Ian's 16th birthday, the boy's mother gives her sons a magical toolkit that can bring their father back for one day. But of course, shenanigans unfold and the boys must set out on a journey in order to be able to complete the magic spell. Now, the fan theory surrounding this one is actually more sad than evil, but hey. So for this theory to work, you also have to remember there is a pretty big fan theory that suggests Andy from Toy Story's dad is also dead. And so essentially, some fans believe that Onward is not actually its own story, but that it is a story that is imagined in the head of Andy to help him cope with the loss of his father. Meaning that Andy is trying to imagine a world where he could live in a magical universe and bring his dad back to life. I mean, just break my heart already. Coming in at number 4, Pixar Endgame. As we are all well aware at this point, the biggest theory of them all is the Pixar universe theory, which, just like any other universe theory, imagines that all the movies exist in the same world and that their characters and plots overlap and intertwine. So, Based on this umbrella theory, there is a fan theory surrounding the conclusion or end goal for the characters of this universe, and that is a complete human apocalypse followed by running the world and ruling over humans forever. Sounds just like the cheery stories you remember watching as a kid, right? Essentially, this theory suggests that it's actually all the talking toys, inanimate objects, and talking animals that send humans away on the Axiom ship because they were all fed up with being treated like second-class citizens and being used by their human owners. Then, once the humans return to Earth with the help of Wally, a pseudo-supervillain uprising begins, forcing the humans to work for the toys and be treated just as they were for all those years. Now, this one is dark, but maybe the worst part about it is that if it were true, that would mean that Wally would have to be in on the plot, meaning that he would actually be luring humanity back, not to help regrow it, but to imprison it under a new dictatorship of malevolent toys. Which, yeah, is definitely darker than how I remember it. Coming in at number 3, Monstropolis isn't real. Once again, we have yet another sinister theory to add to the Monsters Inc. franchise, and this one involves my favorite character, Boo, but it's definitely not my favorite theory. The theory starts off by saying that when you watch Monsters Inc., Boo seems to be having a blast with her new monster friends, Sully and Mike. But the bad part comes in when they ask, what if Monstropolis wasn't a real place at all? What if the monsters aren't real? And what if the story of Monsters Inc. is merely a warped trauma memory created by Boo to cope with being kidnapped? You see already why I hate this theory. Essentially, this theory states that when Boo returned from this adventure, her parents would have been worried sick, and the story they would have got is that she was taken in the night by some monsters who made her scream, and then proceeded to hang out in a strange city with said fuzzy giant and a one-eyed monster. So could it be that Sully was less of a friendly fuzzball and more of a creepy, overly hairy kidnapper? I mean, I choose to believe no because I love Boo too much, but let me know what you think of this one. Coming in at number 2, Bon Voyage is the real villain. While most of us watched the Incredibles movie thinking the main villain was Syndrome, there are some fans out there that have a different opinion. According to this theory, the villain we see at the top of the movie, Bon Voyage, is actually far more evil than Syndrome ever was, as he was actually behind the entire lawsuit against the supers. Let me break it down. Fans point out that in the movie, the man who appears to be taking his own life, who is saved by Mr. Incredible, was not just some random guy, but actually a henchman of Bon Voyage planted to simultaneously protect the supers from ruining Bon Voyage's heist and then be the catalyst for the lawsuit. Supporters of this theory point out it seems fairly convenient that this man happens to be jumping from the building at the exact same time a heist is taking place when two well-known superheroes just so happen to be nearby. And so it's believed he was used to lure the supers into the building, which in turn allowed the unknown henchman to later claim it as an unwanted act, hence outlawing supers and allowing villains to go on scheming completely undisturbed forever. And last up in our number 1 spot, Linguini. It didn't take long for the world to fall in love with Remy the rat. I mean, honestly, what wasn't to love about the adorable little critter? But this theory might have you second guessing just how quickly you fell for him. One Reddit user suggested that Remy might not be an actual character, but rather a metaphor for something much darker, drug addiction. The theory explains that Linguini, who is the chef that Remy controls, is not so much under the influence of a super amazing rat chef, but rather another illegal substance. To make matters more evil, the theory then reminds us that Linguini's father, the famous and acclaimed Gusteau, was one of Paris's best chefs, and so all that pressure would have been a lot to handle. And so Linguini, now finding himself working in a restaurant and feeling like he can't live up to his legacy, turns to other substances for a sense of confidence ingredients, and it's only when under those influences that he can magically cook. But of course he keeps it a secret, knowing he'll be judged if anyone finds out the truth. Now what makes this even darker is that in the end, he's still cooking with Remy, so I'm not sure it's got the best message. All I have to say is, as far as evil theories go, this one is a lot. I mean, can't we just enjoy a nice story?
Number 10. Wall-E destroyed the Earth. Now, while Wall-E is definitely one of the cutest characters Pixar has created, even though he's just a robot, this theory shows that cute doesn't always mean peaceful. The theory goes that Wall-E was just another waste collection robot built to help with the Earth Recovery Act, but he either had some crossed wires or just wasn't very good at his job, and he loved to collect trinkets and little human artifacts, but all the other robots just doing their job were compacting anything and everything they could get their little grippers on, including Wall-E's stuff. This made the little robot snap, and he started destroying the other robots bit by bit and keeping the parts for himself. We see this in the movie when he takes a part off of a downed robot to replace his worn out treads. Over time, Wall-E cannibalized the rest of the robots, allowing him to continue to function for over 700 years, way past his original life cycle. And now he can collect his trinkets while still doing his job in peace. But at what cost? With all of the other collection units broken, the trash problem only gets worse until we see the world as it stands at the beginning of the film. Number 9. Andy's Monster. Before I move on, please hit those like and subscribe buttons if you're enjoying the video so far. I'd really appreciate it. In Monsters Inc., we learn that all children have a monster that is assigned to scare them so that they can collect the screams for energy. But since all the Pixar movies are connected, that means that characters from other movies have monsters too. In one of the training montage scenes in Monsters Inc., we see Randall Boggs practicing his camouflage skills up against many different backgrounds, one of which is the same blue sky with clouds wallpaper we see on Andy from Toy Story's bedroom walls. Since Randall is the only one who can turn invisible like this, it shows that he is preparing up against things he may actually have to blend into. Randall seems to be the reason that Andy needs his toys for protection. Other scenes in the movie show a room that has the same poster Sid does in his room, showing another connection to Toy Story and why Sid may have been so mean. Number 8. Marriage turned inside out. I love Inside Out for giving a generation of kids a way to think about their emotions and teach them that finding a balance and talking about your emotions is the real key to happiness. But not all the characters in the movie have learned that lesson yet. It seems as though Riley's parents have a lot of work to do on their own, or more likely, together. When we have the brief glimpses inside of her parents' heads, we can see what's really going on. Sometimes her dad just isn't listening and is replaying an old memory, or sometimes they're distracted by their own emotions. While we would all hope that joy is the emotion running all of our controls, it seems that her parents aren't so lucky. Her dad's main emotion seems to be anger, with him running the show, yelling and getting literally hot-headed at the slightest things, while inside her mom's head, sadness takes center stage. This shows that the two may not be in the healthiest of places on their own, let alone as a couple. And I'm sure that this has led to some strife in Riley's life. Personally, I think that everyone needs to see a therapist a few times in their life. It really helps, I promise. And hopefully Riley's parents get some counseling and can learn to put joy back at the center of their controls. Number 7. All in the Family. While the story of Ratatouille takes us on a journey of Linguini becoming an amazing chef, thanks to his rat friend Remy, for lack of a better term, driving him from under his chef's hat, many believe that this is not the first time that this has happened in the Pixar universe. If you look closely at the cover of the Food and Wine magazine in the opening sequence, you can just make out what appears to be something under Chef Gusteau's hat. Some believe that this is his own little chef, who helped Gusteau become the culinary star he was. But if a quick picture isn't enough to convince you, how about this? When Skinner is trying to figure out if Linguini really is the heir to Gusteau's restaurant, he has a DNA test performed. He uses hair taken from Gusteau's hat and some DNA collected from Linguini. But the first time the lawyer ran the sample, it came back as rodent hair. We're led to believe that this was a hair taken from Linguini and was mixed up with Remy the rat's hair. But we never see a hair sample taken from Linguini. It's actually implied that Skinner used saliva that he got from the wine glass when he and Linguini were drinking wine in the office. So there was actually a rat hair in Gusteau's toque, and some even believe that it was Remy's mom who was under there, and she was likely killed by Skinner just before the review that brought down Gusteau's restaurant. Number 6. Carpocalypse. This theory is pretty well known, but I still think it's worth talking about here. There are so many interesting things about the Cars world that just don't make sense. Like, if there are no humans around, why do the cars have handles? Why are there human-sized doors and staircases and rooms that cars couldn't operate? Unless the world was originally built by and for humans. More examples like the London Eye and the Eiffel Tower and the fact that sidewalks exist at all prove this theory further. But how did we get here? Some think that at some point in the not-so-distant future, AI built into cars becomes self-aware, and after implanting itself into all the cars being built, decides that humans were no longer necessary, and disposed of them all. After a few thousand years, with fuel supplies running low, the cars actually began to convert the human remains into fuel, like how we use fossil fuels in our current age. Crazy stuff.
Takes us to number 5. The movie Up was already super sad as it was, and pretty heartbreaking, and now you're telling me that Carl was dead the entire time? Is this real life right now? First, his wife Ellie suffers a miscarriage, then they're told that they can never have kids. So they try to save up money for a trip of a lifetime, but when Ellie got sick, she's hospitalized and then she died. Remind me why I ever wanted to watch this movie in the first place, but now this theory is telling us that Carl died in his sleep when he got the call telling him that he might be moving to a retirement home. Apparently the entire movie is about his journey to the afterlife, and when the house rises up towards the sky, it's actually a metaphor for him going to heaven, and Russell was his guardian angel. I'm literally so heartbroken right now, I don't even know what to do with myself. Shots fired in at number 4 with Gaston killing Bambi's mother. I warned you guys, I warned you that this list, it wouldn't be easy to get through, but are any of you guys really surprised by this news? I don't think you guys are. I mean, Gaston was the real beast of the movie, and he didn't really care about who he hurt. We all know that Gaston was a really good hunter because he had so many dead animals hanging on his wall. I mean, the evidence was there, it was pretty obvious. And in one of his songs, he sang that he uses antlers in all of his decorating, which sounds super suspect to me. It's pretty suspicious. And let's not forget that at the very beginning of the film, we see a deer drinking from the river in front of a castle. Yeah, I realize that it can literally be any deer, but Disney loves throwing in Easter eggs, so it was probably Bambi's mother right before Gaston murdered her. It's a theory that could be very plausible. Next up, number 3, Sully was killed in Monsters, Inc. and was turned into a toilet seat cover. This movie is about a world full of monsters who earn a living by capturing children's screams, but in reality, the monsters are also terrified of humans. And it probably has something to do with Randall's theory that humans are known to kill and skin monsters and turn them into toilet seat covers. So if you were to watch one of the Toy Story's animated shorts, Partysaurus Rex, the toilet seat cover in Bonnie's house, it looks super familiar. I mean, why would you do this to us, Pixar? And I guess this explains why Monsters University was a prequel instead of a sequel. Mike Sully wasn't alive to do the second movie. Peter Pan might be a pedophile, and this brings us to number 2. When we first think about Peter Pan, we see a highly spirited young boy who lives in a magical world called Neverland, where children never grow up. But enough of that fake portrayal. Let's expose Peter Pan for who he truly is. First of all, he enjoys stalking little girls. When Wendy helps Peter Pan with the shadow, he reveals to her that he already knows her name, her family, where she lives, and what she does every day, because he's been watching her from her window curtains for years. Is this real life right now? Wendy should have gotten a restraining order and called the police. But then we also learn that Peter Pan goes one step further and kidnaps little boys and girls. He uses Tinkerbell and forces her to use her powers to make the children learn how to fly so that they can be able to come to the magical world. But he forgets to mention that there are killer pirates there, and he doesn't even get permission from their parents. All Peter Pan is missing is a white van and a creepy mustache. But that might be part of the sequel. Topping off this disturbing list, in at number 1, we got Peter Pan again. Peter Pan is an angel of death. So if he's not a pedophile, he might be this. What's going on with Peter Pan? Why hasn't he been arrested yet? First he's kidnapping people, and now he's the angel of death? Well, let me explain. Apparently Peter Pan is a deranged psychopath who kills lost boys when they become adults. This explains why kids never grow old in Neverland, and maybe Captain Hook was one of the good guys after all. Some even say that Captain Hook used to be a lost boy, but he discovered what Peter Pan was up to, so he was able to escape and made it his life mission to put an end to Peter Pan. Once he's done with the lost boys, he probably throws them in crocodile-infested waters.